I will leave the lights on for right now, please. Excuse me. A little bit of my history, and before I start, there's two guys here that came walking in here, and I pretty near dropped my teeth because I haven't seen in a while. Number one, Merv Darnell was also stationed here at Wurtsmith. He was an EW. Okay, the other thing, I'm going to use a lot of abbreviations. If you do not understand me, raise your hands and we will straighten things out. But he was an electronic warfare officer. He worked in the wing staff and he was on a crew for a while there and things like that. So if you don't know what an electronic warfare officer is, I'm not going to explain it. You can talk to him.
Yeah.
Art Rumsig, who still lives in Tawas, and Merv lives up in Oscoda. Art lives out here, out in the country. You still live out there, Plank Road? Or
Yep.
I worked for Art at one time, and he did not put me in jail. I did not get any Article 15s under him, so I was very satisfied with my time with Art. He was up at K.I. Sawyer before you came here, true?
Yeah.
So he had some experience, and he also saw the wonderful spaces of Southeast Asia, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I missed that government trip. Don't regret that one for a bit, but but he's another fellow that's been around. So anyhow, my history. Excuse me. On the 14th of May, 1973, I said, yes sir, 3 bags full, and I was then an E5 in the United States Air Force. If you don't know, in the military, there are E's and there are O's, okay? I was an E5, that's a staff sergeant, okay? 2 weeks later, I was in class learning to be an O. I was in what was called officer training school. It was down at the Medina complex at Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio, Texas. If you've never seen San Antonio, Texas in the summertime, don't. It's nasty. So anyhow, on the 10th of August, 73, I was commissioned a second lieutenant. From there, I came back, corralled my wife, 2 kids, and the dog, put the furniture in a moving van, and headed to Mather Air Force Base in Sacramento, California for navigator training. I got my wings in May of 74. While I was at Mather, I went through what was called NBT, Navigator Bombardier Training. And that basically taught me all the equipment in a B-52. And you were teamed up. I was going to be the navigator. If you're not familiar, there are 2 navigators in a B-52. There's a navigator, and then there's a radar navigator. The radar navigator is normally the more experienced guy, the more knowledgeable guy. I can give you names, dates, and everything else of radar navigators that didn't know the square root of that projector. And Art, I'm sure, can tell you more. But anyhow, there are 2 people downstairs. So you usually start out as a navigator. And we were teamed up. We didn't know where we were going at that time. So at the end of NBT, we had our assignments. The guy that I got teamed up with was a previous tanker navigator. He thought coming to B-52s would get him promoted better than being in a tanker. So we went to Castle Air Force Base, still in the California Valley, and had, I think it was 15 sorties in a B-52H model. And we had our assignment to the 17th bomb line, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base.
Wow.
Halfway through, somebody's familiar with the 17th bomb line. Halfway through Castle, we get in the military, when you go PCS, permanent change of station, to another base, they select a sponsor for you. And they help you get familiar with the area, show you around the base. They sent us a newspaper article. 17th Bomb Wing to leave Wright-Patterson. Oh crap. So now we're in limbo. We don't know where we're going. My radar navigator had been in the service for 7 years as a tanker guy. My pilot at Castle had been a T-37 instructor pilot. Those airplanes is what you teach new guys to be pilots. So he'd been in it. So he was a little familiar with, both of those guys were a little bit familiar with the military personnel system. You will never completely know the military personnel system, ever. Nobody will. Not even the military personnel system. But, so we started calling around, and we called up here and called a guy by the name of Colonel Jack Doran. He was a DO. Said, hey, how would you like to have the best B-52 crew you can ever see? Well, he believed us. So, we got the paperwork going, and at the end of Castle, we came up here. I was a navigator. We went on a crew, pulled alert. I'll explain alert a little bit later, but it was a fun time. 1 week out of every 3, you lived away from home for a week. So we did that, and then I, excuse me, went into Bomb Nav as a staff navigator. And in 1983, I went to Carswell Air Force Base in Fort Worth, Texas. And hey, that's the way they talk down there. But I was assigned to what was called the 4235th Strategic Training Squadron. We developed training programs, slide programs, equipment. There was even a detachment there at that time, and I was there from 83 to 86. There was a detachment there doing all of the B1, the B1B as opposed to the B1A that, you know, kind of took a wayside there. But they were building all the B1 programs. In 86, they said I had to go back and fly again. So they offered me Loring, which was a bit away from Montreal, Canada, in northern Maine. And they also offered me another garden spot. Why not Minot in North Dakota? And I told them, ain't no way I'm going to either one of them. And they said, well, I said, how about Parksdale? Oh no, you've been south for 3 years. You can't stay south. Wait a minute. I know guys who were down there for 10 years. No, you're not staying. Okay. I said, okay. How about if I go to Wurtsmith? You've already been to Wurtsmith. Shows the just amazing knowledge of MPC. They know where I've been. So I said, just send me back to Wurtsmith. So I did. And came back up there and did things. I retired as a lieutenant colonel on the 31st of May, 1993. That was 30 days before the military left Wurtsmith Air Force Base. On the 1st of June, I took off my blue suit, and I still wear blue, I don't know what the hell it is. But anyhow, I started wearing civilian clothes as an employee of the United States Air Force. We had a, excuse me, we had a detachment at what used to be Wurtsmith, was now Oscoda Wurtsmith. But they called me a site manager, so I got to be in charge of this band of hooligans. But anyhow, I had 3 environmental engineers, a real estate person, a contracting officer, and a cooperative agreement monitor. Because the Air Force hired, after the military left, the Air Force hired about 60 to 70 people to maintain previous base property until it was transferred to, in this case, either Oscoda Township or the Airport Authority. So that was my job, to monitor my 10 plus the other 60, and then try and keep up with the reuse people. I was talking to Art here before the presentation. There was a gentleman who lived here in Tawas, General Earl O'Laughlin. Maybe some of you know him. He was a nice guy. He was a heck of a guy. For a general, he was a really nice guy. Okay. Some people, when they get above, well, some people they get above lieutenant, but anyhow, they get to higher ranks and they lose all common sense. He was good. But anyhow, he was retired. He retired in 88, I believe it was. And he was on the reuse committee for the township and whatever. And they kept saying they wanted a B-52 to be left at Wurtsmith. Well, all of Wurtsmith's B-52s were now at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base in Tucson, Arizona, being chopped up under the SALT agreements. Okay? And if you've never seen that, up at the museum we should have one where you have the fuselage and the wings. The wings are cut off right at the fuselage, and then the fuselage is taking 2 more cuts. And they have this guillotine, which is about this wide, and it starts out about this wide at the top and comes down to a point at the bottom, and they have a crane, and they just drop that on the airplane. Breaks my heart every time I watch that video, but that's another story. So, ours were already gone. The general went to Pentagon. You got to understand that 4 stars never really retire, even though they aren't on active duty. So he knew people. He went to his people. He used up a bunch of favors. We came into a reuse committee meeting, and he was there, all the Oscoda Township, Osable Township, Tawas, the county, the state was in part of it, and the general was kind of a floating guy. But anyhow, he says, do you guys still want to be 52? Oh, yeah. I said, okay. Or he said, okay, one is on its way. What? What do you mean? And I can't remember if it was Griffiths or Loring, New York or Maine. It was on its way to Davis-Monthan. It was going to stop by Wurtsmith, and the crew was going to find their way home somehow. So, and then the township said, you're going to maintain this airplane for as long as it's here, correct? No, that doesn't happen. So, the next words out of the township mouth was, we don't want it. I could see the general's face just get red, just like this, as he said no. If he would have acted on his feelings at that time, he would have killed 3 people. He was just thoroughly upset, and I don't blame him. So anyhow, we do not have a B-52, and we'll never get one. Right now there are about 72 B-52H models still flying. And they are still flying, and they're working, and I'll ask these 2 guys too. They're talking about putting engines on a B-52 now. They're going to replace the 8 with 4. How many times did you hear when you were in your careers were they replacing engines on B-52s? I mean, at least it never happened. So anyhow, the last plan I heard was the B-52 the way it is with 8 engines was going to last to 2050. Okay, that makes it over 100 years old. That airplane was designed in World War II. So, anyhow, I think I said, I get lost sometimes. I started that job as a civilian in '93. They said it was supposed to be a 3 to 5 year job. After 6.5 years, I had enough fun. The local reuse policy people, anybody here remember a guy by the name of Carl Levitt? Senator? Okay. He was on their speed dial. I talked to Mr. Levin's staff a couple times a week because I was doing something wrong for them. So, like I say, I get tired of that. And so after 6 years, I'm out. So, anyhow, that's me. Since then, I've had a little business in Oscoda, and now I volunteer up at the Wurtsmith Air Museum. Anybody familiar with the Wurtsmith Air Museum? Okay. If you go to the big city of Oscoda and go through the first stoplight, which is downtown, go to the second stoplight, at Burger King. Used to be a Rite Aid, but you know, they're gone. So, at that stoplight, turn left. You go up F41. You're going to go up there for about 1.5 miles, 2 miles. On the right side, you'll see a place called Van Etten Lake. Okay? That's this thing right here. Okay? And you're going to see a sign. It's going to be right here. This is our emblem, the museum emblem. This is where we are. But as you drive here by Van Etten, you're going to see this sign. It's about 70 feet long, about 10 feet high. It's red, white, and blue. That's our museum. Okay? So, you go through, there's a little gate right here. It used to be for Air Force Base, for the military. But you go in there, come back down here, and come back in there. And like I said, we have 3 1950s vintage fighter hangars. One of the hangars is set up with displays, and you just kind of snake through it. The other 2 hangars have airplanes in them. We have 2 T-33s. We have an L-19 that we just redid. We've got a World War II glider that we redid, and a couple of smaller aircraft. I'll show you here. We're working, if you're familiar, we have a Facebook page and we have a GoFundMe page. We're trying to fund a free F-16 Thunderbird. It's down at Shepherd Air Force Base in Texas. And the government will give it to us. However, in order to put it on a trailer, you've got to take the wings off and tails off. Okay? That's $10,000. Okay? Then we got to haul it up here. That's another $5,000. Then, once it gets to Michigan and it's off the trailer, the state of Michigan charges me $10,000. Please do not ask me why, because you'll just really tick me off and I'll get off on a deep end. I don't know why it is. It's an administrative charge that they charge. So, for this free airplane, it cost me $25,000. So, I checked yesterday, and they are only doing emergency transfers right now because government's closed. So, that's the way it is. So, anyhow, we're trying to do that. Let's get started here. This photo was taken about 1979. And you can tell that, I can tell that. Thank you. If you look over here, this is where a commissary will be in the future. If you look down here, and right here, this is Skeel Avenue, for those of you. This is F41 here, and this is the part where you turn left at Burger King and you come down here. And F41 goes on up to Lincoln, another big city. But the circle of flags is not there, the commissary is not there, and there are no bunkers out here for Alcoms. Air-launched cruise missiles. Just a general overview of what Wurtsmith was at one time. And we'll show you other photos as we go along, how it progressed and started out up here. These are maintenance hangars here. There was 6. There was one more built by the Air Force before the military left. This is what we call the operational ramp. This is where I would go fly. B-52 sat on this side, tankers sat on that side. And never the twain shall meet. So we would go out here, get on this airplane, then we taxi up here and take off here. This runway is 11,800 feet long by 300 feet wide. It had to be 300 feet wide because the B-52 has training wheels out at the end. It has a 185-foot wingspan, and when you fill it with fuel, the wings are a big fuel tank. They droop down. So you need tires to keep them from dragging. When it gets airborne, especially if it's very heavy, the wings do this, okay? The one number that I've heard is 27 feet of flex of the wingtips on a B-52. Okay? So, like I say, it had to be 300 feet wide for above. Sorry. Big, ugly fellow. Sometimes There's another F added in there, which I will not go into today. So, but anyhow, a buff was wide and it needed a runway. And they had to be careful out here on the taxiways, or they'd take out lights, which is not uncommon. This is an alert facility. B-52s and KC-135s sat on alert. They were ready to go to war. And this was the Cold War, so we're talking about Russia. But then in 1990, was it? The Russians became our friends. Okay, they still are our friends. So we don't have alert anymore. Yeah, well, hey, that's a story, I'm sticking to it. Like I say, this is the weapons storage area. This had gravity bombs. Wurtsmith also had a little missile called a SRAM, short range attack missile. It went really fast. And they hauled them around on a rotary launcher in the bomb bay above. I don't know what they were loaded with. I don't know. I can neither confirm or deny about nuclear weapons. Okay? Or the guy sitting right back there in the corner is writing down all this one thing. But anyhow, and then this is what I call the commercial area of the base. Now this base ops ramps, you will see back from the 40s. And we even have a movie that was made in 1948. It's called Fighter Squadron, that was made at Wurtsmith. And they have P-47s on this ramp in 1948. We even had our own set of Germans out here. So, but anyhow, this is the commercial area. This was, make sure I get this right here. This is that's the fuel pits. Supply is over here. That's the fuel pits. This is hospital. Yeah. So, and most of these in here are dorms. Most of those are gone now. Now, I told you before that property was transferred to either the township or the airport authority. One, maybe even 40, might think that, okay, this is airport and this is township. There is a dormitory sits right here that is airport. There is a commissary sits right here, which is township. I don't know. There was swamp gas and mirrors done to divide this off. This is all housing. These were what we call relocatable. They came in pieces and just built. And this all came when Mother SAC came. SAC, Strategic Air Command. Okay. Before that, this wasn't even part of the base. The military people lived on housing units mainly out here by the front gate. So, but that is what's ended up, basically. And now I'm going to look and see. In 1923, it became Loud Reams Aviation Field, named after a Lieutenant Loud and a Captain Ream, both of who died during World War I. So somebody felt obligated. We need to name something after them. Okay, we named an airfield after them. In about 1925, the Army was beginning to gain an interest in Loud Reams Airfield. And they came up here and they called it Camp Skeel. Lieutenant Skeel was a pilot. He even worked with the Wright brothers trying to make the aircraft a military vehicle. Okay? So just about anything, somebody will try and militarize it. No, they did. So this was Camp Skeel back in 1925. Now, since the name is Camp Skeel, you could assume that was Army. Camp or fort, that's Army. Okay? So, Camp Skeel. Army guys like tents. Even today they like tents. Now, another short. Oh, by the way, if anybody has any questions at any time, please stop me. I want to get your questions when you think of them, because if we wait till the end, you'll forget them and I will never know about them. So just raise your hand and we'll go for it. But anyhow, Camp Skeel, bunch of tents. Okay, we're still with the Army. It's got a little airport, but it's not much. Okay. We did an exercise. I think it was about 88, something like that. It was called Bright Star. We took 4 bombers to Egypt. Okay? I lived in a tent. It wasn't like this. It was air conditioned and heated. Okay? Had the chow hall right down here and another tent that was air conditioned and heated. We had some Army guys come. Said, "Where'd you go? Where you been?" "We've been over in Jordan." "Yeah. What'd you live in over there?" "Pup tent." "Oh, great. How long were you over there?" 3 weeks. Good for you. So, anyhow, that's the reason that I joined the Air Force. Number one, if I joined the Army, I would have had to carry a 60-pound pack. No, you're good. I would have to carry a 60-pound pack and march for 20 miles a day. Nah, it doesn't thrill me a bit. If I went in the Navy, I get seasick. I'm not going to just go out on a big boat. And some other time I'll tell you about my wife's and my bucket list princess cruise. But anyhow, I didn't join the Navy. So I joined the Air Force. And you got to understand one thing about the Air Force. The Air Force goes nowhere without building an officers club first. So, ain't no officers club here. So, about 1927, they decided that, Selfridge Army Airfield, because there was no Air Force then yet. So Selfridge decided they wanted a place to come and practice. Because right today, there's 500,000 acres of national forest out there. Back then, it was a lot more. And what a big forest like that is to pilots is a target. So, they wanted to bring airplanes up here and shoot at trees, or other things, or drop bombs on them. Sir?
Did they do anything with balloons or blimps?
I have not seen anything about any inflatables, other than you had Mae West when you put them on when you went over water, but that's not good. No, that was just a life preserver for a flyer. I have not seen anything that said there was anything done with inflatables up here. They may have, but I have not seen a picture. I have not seen it mentioned in any literature that I've read.
Okay.
In World War I and II, it was very important. They theoretically slowed down low-level attacks by putting up a bunch of airplanes don't want to fly through ropes up in the sky. Get rope tied up in a propeller and it ruin your day. So, 1927, we called it Skoda Army Airfield. And then Selfridge started bringing more and more people up. And remember I told you about Van Etten Lake? Van Etten Lake. Apparently, they didn't have snow removal equipment then, because they didn't want to clean off the runway. So they just landed out here. Now, that's a pretty good sized airplane there. So, landing on water I don't know how they ops check that. Who wants to be the first guy to land on this ice? Yeah, boy. So,
Ron's plane goes first.
now, if any of you are familiar with Van Etten, this is what we used to call Air Force Beach. The Air Force had a beach here, and then just down this way we had a Quonset hut that they rented boats and other swimming type stuff. And later on, this is about where Warrior Pavilion was located, or is located today. It's still there. But this is Van Etten Lake, and that's what they did during the 30s. You know, so we went from Wright brothers, you know, and smaller airplanes. Now we're getting, these are even single engines, and you notice there's a wheel there, but that's also a ski. So they're landing on skis. We've got a video up at the museum that shows taking a 55-gallon drum, which is yay bigger drum, about yay high, sliding it out on the ice, and loading, pumping gas into the airplane. So it was different time. So 30s, Oscoda Army Airfield is expanding. Get into the 40s, now we're talking World War II. This is a B-17. This is what the 379th Bomb Group flew in World War II out of England, and they flew out of a place called Kimbolton. There were 4 squadrons in the 379th Bomb Group. The 379th Bomb Group was activated in 1942, okay, and practiced in the States, and then went over to England and flew over there. The first part of the war that they were participating in, they flew into Germany with no fighter coverage, and they ate their lunch. Okay, there was one. Has anybody seen? There's a documentary out on the Memphis Belle. Yeah. Anybody seen that? Yeah. There's a guy that was in. I couldn't understand if he was in the 379, but he was in B-17s out of England flying in. And he says, one day they took off with 12 airplanes flying into Germany, and they came back with 12. 6 of them were shot down, destroyed by one means or other, either fighters or flak. And they said, okay, well, we missed the targets, so we got to go back. So 2 days later, they sent another 18 airplanes. Okay, 1 airplane returned. Okay, now this airplane had a crew of 10 people. Okay, war is ugly, folks. No matter what war you're in, it's ugly, ugly, ugly. So a lot of people don't understand it. And mostly, they also said during that documentary that the average age of flyers was 22. 22 years old. An 18-year-old kid, even by my age, you know, whatever, 18-year-old kid was standing in this open window with a .50 caliber machine gun trying to shoot down an ME-109 that was trying to shoot him down. And they were at 20 to 25,000 feet, and it was 40 degrees below zero. And they had, the damn window was open. Somebody closed the window. They couldn't. And what was really neat, there was a window like this on the other side of the airplane too. So, and none of this was pressurized. Okay. This gentleman here flies for, can I say it or not?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, he flies for Spirit Airlines. Okay,
Yeah.
he flies what, A320?
Yeah.
Okay, you probably, if you've flown any at all, you've probably flown on one of those. Okay, either that or a Mr. Boeing deal. But when you flew on his airplane, you didn't have to wear a mask or anything like that. The cabin was totally pressurized. You just sit back there and have a hot toddy and land at Dallas. These guys, you get through 10,000 feet, you have to be on oxygen. So they were on oxygen, and also up at the museum we have a cold weather outfit that one of those kids would have worn. It's sheepskin lined leather jacket. Okay, and they have mittens they wore, and then they had kind of a flak jacket and a flak helmet to protect them, because if you look at that documentary, looking at some of those the damage of those aircraft was amazing. And it's amazing to me that those airplanes made it back, that they survived. Now, I'm not trying to argue with this guy, but Mr. Boeing has been very good to me, okay? I spent 20 years and 18 days flying Boeing aircraft, a B-52, okay? I got to where I wanted to go every time. I might not have had 1, 2, or 3 engines, and we've got a display up in the museum of a guy that lost 4 engines. If you're not familiar, the B-52 has 4, I don't know if I can do this with my fingers, 4 engines on each side. They're each in pods, okay? Well, on the right side, this pod fell off. Well, when that one fell off, that stopped the fuel to this one, so that one was there, but it wasn't pushing. There was none of this, wasn't any of that at all. Darnell, what are you doing? Do you have control over him at all?
No,
Court martial. Sorry about that.
but it's mutual.
Hey, why not? So anyhow, he walked away. And that is a pilot's definition of a good landing, if you can walk away. So and they did. But like I said, if you get a chance, watch. And it's about the Memphis Belle that they restored. It's the original aircraft. Back in the World War II, they tried to incentivize people to go get shot at. So they said, if you get 25 sorties over Germany, we'll let you go home. Whoa. The average was 12. So, what do you know? So anyhow, that's a B-17. This is a B-17. Now this is a G model, and you can tell because it's got guns on the nose. This is the bomb bay. Hardly worth talking about. They could carry 8, 9 bombs going to Germany. Okay? So you fly all that way, 4 or 5 hours one way, 4 or 5 hours coming back, all to drop less than 10 bombs. Okay? The other important thing, the bombardier sits right up here, and that's why he has a flat piece of glass, because if you've ever looked out a curved glass window, it's distorted. So they have a piece of flat glass there, that's how they aim for bombs. And we have what's called a Norden bomb sight up at the museum. And when they put that in, it decreased the circular error by half, which is significant. And what that means is these airplanes were going up there, missing the target and going home. Well, if they miss the target, gotta go back tomorrow and go back until that target is taken care of. So the Norden bomb sight did a lot. It was a secret thing. The bombardier was responsible for it. He carried it around a little box. And if the airplane crashed, he had to take it with him. And if he was going to be captured, he had to destroy it. But basically, it was an early computer, but it integrated, cosmic was it was. It integrated wind, airspeed, and altitude. And if you can solve those in a bomb problem, you can hit what you're aiming at. 25,000 feet, nobody knew what the winds were between, at 10,000 or 12,000. So that's the tricky part. And that happened even in Desert Storm. Oh crap. We gotta go. We gotta get moving here. This is a P-51B model. And you can tell it's a B because the cockpit stops here. The later, is it still here? Yeah. This one is a D. Can't see that real well. I got it.
Merv, you shouldn't have done that.
Okay. Here, now as you can see this one. I'm gonna hold on to it. See, the cockpit here is all glass. Well, now you can see people coming from what they call your 6 o'clock. That one they couldn't. But that's what the Tuskegee Airmen came up to Wurtsmith, Oscoda Army Airfield, to practice in. And it's even painted with a red tail. That's what the Tuskegee had. They all had their airplanes painted with a red tail, so the Germans would know who they were. So, but they were up here for over a year and a half. This is the P-47. It was a very good ground attack airplane. Could carry a lot of bombs. Had 3 50 caliber machine guns on each side. Tear all kinds of things up. Mainly they went after trains carrying stuff. So, now, in 1947, the United States Air Force was created. And Oscoda Army Airfield became Oscoda Air Force Base. Okay. Now, this one is kind of misleading, in that it says Wurtsmith Air Force Base, but then you see down here, I don't know if you can read it, but it says 1951. It wasn't Wurtsmith Air Force Base until 1953, but because Paul Wurtsmith, died, and then they named that thing. But anyhow, this is what was early on. They had this long runway, 8,000 feet, but then they had a triangular shaped runway pattern. And they had these because the smaller airplane, like in the biplanes and everything, they really had to take off into the wind. If they didn't, it just went. And they didn't need very much length. But this was made for the fighters that came later. And this doesn't show it, but there's where we are located. There's more hangars out here after this was designed. But you can see here, this is what I call the commercial area of Wurtsmith. The housing is not there. AAA is not there. There's the bunkers, a few conventional bombs, that's all they had there. This is a T-33 aircraft. Because I cannot find a picture of an F-80 aircraft. An F-80 is what they had at Oscoda Air Force Base. The F-80 is different from this in that it was just a single seat. This is a T-33, it has 2 seats, and it was used for trainers. The instructor sat in the back, and the student sat in the front. And you had tanks on it, so you could fly longer, and the instructor could abuse a student for a longer period of time. But an F-80 would have been similar, only with just one seat. This is an F-86A. I took this one down at Thunder over Michigan, down at Willow Run Airport. But you can tell, because it's got a hole there, and if you look real close, there's gun ports right here. This was a civilian version. Somebody owned this. This is a private aircraft. At that same place, there was a guy down there too that owned an F-4. I mean, that guy's got more money than good sense. But I mean, those engines just suck up gas. This is an F-86, and you notice the intake here, and there's no radome. This is in one of the hangars that we have at the museum. And the door in the back would open, and then the door in the front would open. At one time, these aircraft would be on alert, and they would stay near their airplanes here, and if they got a horn or a notification, they would come out, get in their airplane, start the engines, and taxi out. Sometimes the doors didn't open fast enough for them, so they helped them. A little bit of thrust from an engine off of an airplane, and it does amazing things to make that thing go up. Let's see. Okay, now, this is a picture of a picture. But this is the base ops ramp, okay? You can see the runways. This is the long runway here, and these are the triangle, and this is where the alert facility will go someday. But these are F-86D models stationed at Wurtsmith, flying over the base ops ramp. This building right here is building 50. It is still at the base, what I call the base. Before the military left, for about 15 years, it was a roller rink. Okay? The Air Force put down a roller rink floor in there. And then, don't get me wrong, folks, Coletta has done a lot for the community, for the base and everything like that. I could have taken Connie Coletta and hung him by the tree when he directed that somebody came in there with a forklift and ripped up that roller rink floor. But that's just me. So, but anyhow, building 50 is still there. And now it's an engine repair station. So it's being used. This is the Wurtsmith Navy. This is US 23 down in Osable. Charbonneau's is right over here, and that's where they were docked, was over at Charbonneau's. So, there were so many crashes that we had to have boats to go pick them out of the lake. A few years ago, one of the local charter fishermen found a missile. He was, well, I don't know. I have heard he was dragging for something. I don't know what all's legal with fishing anymore, but anyhow, he had a big hook, and he hooked onto a air-to-air missile out there. He brought it back in on his boat, and somebody said, "What'd you do that for?" Well, it looked neat. So anyhow, we had two boats, and they were under the Air Force control. This is an F-89 aircraft, and these are all aircraft that were stationed at Wurtsmith at one time. Generally in sequential order, the way you're seeing them. Started off with the F-80, and then now we're up to an F-89. This picture is not an aircraft that was stationed at Michigan. This photo was taken at, excuse me, Dulles Airport at the Smithsonian Museum out there. If you ever get a chance, if they ever open up again, go out to the Dulles Airport. It's really a neat museum. And the Smithsonian also has the Enola Gay, which dropped the first atomic weapon on Hiroshima. So they've got that between them. And then the Air Force Museum down in Dayton has a boxcar, which is the B-29 who released the atomic weapon on Nagasaki. This is a picture of F-89s on the ramp at Oscoda Air Force Base. And right here in the back, Building 50, still there. So, B-29s were the first fighter aircraft that attached nuclear weapons to them. Now I know anything about that. This is an F-101, Voodoo. Big airplane, big airplane. It's a two-seater, but it was a fighter interceptor. Almost got one of these, but they gave it away to somebody in Florida. Never forgive them. This is an F-106B. This has two seats in it. Normally an F-106A, which is the one that would sit on alert in the hangar, is just a single seat, and they would take off and go. You know, if the Russians came over the North Pole, they would go up and play with them. I've heard it still happens. Okay, who knows what this airplane is?
Duty bird.
Nobody? Come on now. There's people here that are old enough. It's a Cessna aircraft.
Wow.
Okay. It's called a T-50. At one time it was used to train navigators, but that was not why I put it on there. It was on TV. Still nothing, huh? Out of the clear blue of the western sky comes,
Sky King. Sky King.
that's right, this is Sky King's airplane, Songbird, and daughter Penny. Yes, ma'am.
You said it was a Cessna, what was it?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
I'm sorry. What was the aircraft? A Cessna?
A Cessna T-50.
Thank you.
Okay, that failed really bad. Okay, here is 1958. Okay, here's the big ramp. Here are the three runways. Okay, and here is a runway under construction. In 1958, Mother Sack came here and said, we're going to make this a Strategic Air Command base. Anybody who wants to stay can stay, but it's going to be mine, said Colonel Sylvain. So, this is the beginning of the runway. AAA alert aircraft area would be out here, and weapons storage area is expanded from that one bunker that you saw on the other chart. Is expanded into here. Now you can see even more hangars over here. And again, this is just the commercial area. The houses have not been built yet. But when SAC came, and over here is where all the maintenance hangars will be, and the SAC ramp where the training sorties were would be over here. So this is just at the beginning, starting that big long runway. And eventually, all of these runways will be abandoned and made into taxiways or so. This is 1961. The arrival of the first B-52H off of Mr. Boeing's assembly line. Okay, we got what they call balls 1, 600001. Okay. Now there had been others. This was an H model. There had been others, A through all through G, but this is what this base was built for. The last slide showed you building the long runway. And this is what I trained in at Castle, and when I got here, I was flying. I've flown that airplane right there. But,
Wow. That's neat.
every time we flew that thing, I don't care if we were, the gross weight of a B-52 is 488,000 pounds. Okay? Small compared to 700,000, I don't know, what's yours, 6, 5?
Oh, no. 200,000 at the most.
Oh, is that right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, just a little one.
Oh, yeah. Those are big.
The 747, some of the big ones are 700,000. So, but anyhow, every time we took off, if we had 11,800, if we used 7,000 feet, we were off the ground and going. You know? And then, well, okay, now I've got to show you one other thing on this picture before we go. Uh-oh. Somebody get me here in a minute. That guy right there?
Ford.
Gerald R. Ford. When he was a House of Representative from the state of Michigan. This lady is Miss Michigan, and the rest of the hooligans I do not know. I was not invited.
Weren't born yet.
Oh, I can't say that even close. I don't know what the heck that thing is. I can guess, but then I'd have to shoot somebody. It looks like a big bomb to me. So anyhow, he was here when the first H got here. So.
That's what he said, yeah.
Eventually, Wurtsmith would trade out aircraft. They would send our H models to Ellsworth Air Force Base in South Dakota at Rapid City, and we would get their G models. They thought, well, gee, you know, this will all work out good. So we got the switch all done, and as a matter of fact, another little known, very uninteresting fact, on the 2nd of May, 1977, Mikey flew that airplane to Ellsworth and delivered it to 28th Bomb Line? Yeah. Right? That's a question.
So close.
I think so, yeah. And then we started swapping out. Had 3 bad bombs that day. Vic Huber was the radar. You remember him? Yeah, it's not for us. Yeah, you had to stand up. You had to be in stand up a lot with him. But anyhow, we traded out airplanes, and then we got G's until we closed in '93. This is a B-52H model. It is from Barksdale. You can tell that. It says Louisiana. Today there are 2 wings of B-52s. One is at Barksdale Air Force Base in Louisiana, Shreveport, and the other one is at Minot Air Force Base in North Dakota. Stand on a beer can and see you in the next week in Minot. This shows the pylons where you would put bombs on. You could put 12 bombs on each side here, and then put 27 inside, conventional bombs. During Vietnam, they had what was called a D model, B-52. Do you fly Ds or Gs over there?
D's.
Ds? Yeah. So he got to drop 108 bombs out of a D.
500 pounds.
And I have talked to people on the ground when those things go off, and all they wanted to do is wait for them to go away. Because you get, generally speaking, a B-52 travels in 3s. Okay, it's always a 3-ship cell, especially conventional. With special weapons, they're off on their own by themselves. But this is how you would attach bombs to it. So this aircraft can put 51 500-pound bombs on it, or 750 pounds. That was a problem and these are what we call dumb bombs. Okay? You release them, and they go wherever the heck they want to go. You tried to select the best ballistics you could and everything, but it was a problem. SAC, the B-52s, and then they complained about B-52s after Desert Storm because it didn't hit the targets the way they were supposed to. Well, F-117s, F-15s, various versions. And all the other guys had precision guided munitions. We were still using dumb bombs. So it was a problem. Since then, well, if you look right here, that's a guidance pod for different kinds of precision weapons. Where are we at? Oh, I wanted to talk about alert. Well, before I do that, okay, I have to, I don't like it, but I have to talk about tankers. KC-135, sleek silver south. This, as a matter of fact, is the last tanker to take off from Wurtsmith, and he was going to Davis-Monthan. From 61 through December of 92, Wurtsmith had B-52s of two different varieties, and KC-135As, which were these smaller engines. The Gs, the B-52Gs, and the KC-135As were both what we call water burners. The Buff had 1,200 gallons of water that they injected to 8 engines on takeoff. Okay, I'll show my ignorance here, maybe somebody can explain it. How do you put water on a fire and get more thrust? I don't know, but it works. Because if we lost water on takeoff, if we didn't have enough runway left, we were screwed. We were going to go see the El Salvador River. So, that was always fun. Okay, now. I can't leave it up there. Okay, now, I'm going to talk about alert a little bit. And I know two guys on here have done this before. But alert was, does anybody care if we go another 10 minutes?
Nope.
Okay, thank you. Alert was a B-52 crew and a KC-135 crew. There was generally either 4 or 5 B-52s and 4 KC-135s on alert at Wurtsmith at any one particular time. So they all had to have crews. B-52 crew had 6 people. The tanker had 4 people. Had to have a place to live. Let's see, how can I get to this? Well, I can't. Okay, well, anyhow, we're on alert. We would come on Thursday morning, 7:30 Thursday morning. Oncoming crew would come out to the alert facility, have a briefing. The offgoing crew would then go out to the airplane and collect all their personal belongings. And the oncoming crew at the end of the briefing would then go out to the airplane and make sure that all the secrets were there and stuff like that. Now, these two guys have seen this before. A lock for the EWO box. Now, what's really amazing to me of this, my wife thinks I'm crazy, and she might be right. But anyhow, last time I used this thing was about 40 years ago. It's open. I remembered the combination and how to open the lock. But anyhow, there was a box in each alert bomber. And there was a box in tankers too. But in each bomber, the box was about yay long, about this wide, and probably this tall. Maybe this tall. But anyhow, that had all of the go-to-war codes. It had all of the charts and everything else you would need to take that airplane and go bomb the crap out of somebody. But to do that, there was also something in SAC called the, now I know this is sexist, but it was called the two-man policy. Please don't tell me about that, but that's all right. So, I had a lock as a radar, and the EW had a lock. So that was two officers that had locks on the box. And we had to put those locks on and lock them up. Now we kept a book out that had codes on it, because if you heard a klaxon, you would respond to the airplane, and you would turn the radio on and listen to a message that was coming over. It could be coming from building 500 at Omaha, the Puzzle Palace, or it could be coming from our command post. So we would copy that down, and then you had a matrix that you would see what that meant. Generally speaking, 9 times out of 10, it was going to be a start engines. Every so often, they would make you taxi. It was an elephant walk, a mover. And basically the airport shut down, so 9 airplanes can taxi out and around and finally get back. And then maintenance had to come back. We had to bring fuel out, put fuel on the airplane, taxi in here, then back it in there, and blah, blah, this and that, and the other. So dinner was shot. But they usually kept it open for us. So anyhow, that's what that thing was for, and I found it and opened it. So, but that's what alert was. And they would be on 7:30 Thursday till 7:30 Thursday. And like I said, I got there as a second lieutenant and went on a crew, and 1 week out of every 3, I lived in that alert facility. It was 2 levels. The lower level was sleeping quarters. Generally speaking, for bombers, you had a pilot and a co-pilot in one room. Then you had a radar navigator, and an EW in one room, and then either 2 or 3 gunners, depending on the size of the room, in another room. How the tankers did it, I don't know. What created the problem was we integrated the force, okay? We got a female crew chief. Oh my goodness. Now, you got to understand, 5 crews of bombers times 6, that's 30 guys. 4 times 4 is 16. You add those guys, these are all guys. When you got up out of your bedroom and had to go take care of physiological needs, you walked from your room to take care of physiological needs. We didn't dress in full Class A uniforms. Well, then we came down and we had the females coming. Okay, the females get the bathroom from 7 to 7:15 in the morning. You guys can't be anywhere close to that. And when you're walking around, you gotta control yourself. But anyhow, yeah, well, you know, oh, it got a lot uglier than I'm telling you here, buddy. So, and then it continued, and then came female tanker crews, and now there's female bomber crews, but there's no alert either. In 1990, like I say, when the Russians were our friends, we stopped alert, so we don't do that anymore. But anyhow, but anyhow, that's an alert. Oh, now a typical story for a B-52. When I first got there in 75, a typical story would be you take off at 6 o'clock in the morning. That means you had a show time of 4. And from there you went to get a weather briefing, you got your lunches, you went out pre-flighted, and then you tried to get off on time. Took off at 6 o'clock, and the typical story for Wurtsmith was you took off Indian River departure, go to 10 miles from an on-right, turn towards Pelson VOR, 327 radio, and then go over to AR 109. Any of that sound familiar? Mm-hmm. So, the tanker would take off 10 minutes before us. He would go to the AR track, air refueling track, and then we would come up and meet them, because we had to practice time control. Bomber people were graded by our local stand board, by CEVG and all that, on time control. And if you were outside of 2 minutes, you were unqualified. You had to be retrained. So, and it was a thing of pride for the navigator to be within 15 seconds. Whether it's refueling or entering low level or whatever. So anyhow, we'd go refuel. And generally speaking, we didn't take on a lot of gas. Maybe 1,000 pounds of gas. Well, you can carry 50,000 pounds or 50,000 gallons or 200,000 pounds of gas. But the pilot just needed to stay behind the tanker and connected. And that's what they were practicing. So we would get off the tanker, and let's say we were going to OB-46. It was called Bismarck. Okay? Originally, OB meant oil burner route. It was a low-level route. Somebody decided that oil burner was an offensive term. So we changed it to olive branch. Yeah, the nuke airplane is going to go out with an olive branch. So anyhow, low level was basically about 40 minutes of flying low level. In a B-52 in flat and rolling terrain at Bismarck was about 500 feet above the ground at 350 miles an hour. So we would do that, and then we would come on a bomb run. And we would do a bomb run, various kinds and flavors, and then we would racetrack. So we would do 3 different bomb runs, then we would climb out of low level, and then the navigator would do a celestial nav light. If at night, he would use the stars. In the daytime, there's only one star up there, so you got to use it, the sun. So he would do that. And then we would come back for an hour and a half of traffic pattern. There was a different kind of a low-level route that we used to do. It was called red flag. Basically, there was no rules, and some pilots needed adult guidance. Okay, well, but anyhow, you went out there. It was out over Nevada, and Nellis has what's called a fighter squadron that is from a country with a red star. Okay? So they would be coming and looking for us. And there were various kinds of airplanes. So and that's where the EW got to play a little bit. He got to jam him and all that. And the pilots got to fly low level. Not just 500 feet. We were low level. Everybody knows, I know this guy does, when you turn an airplane, you bank it and go like this, okay? At red flag, if we wanted to turn our airplane, we had to climb. Because if you didn't, you'd drag a wingtip. Okay? So, and these are all under VFR rules, visual flight. One day we were out there, VFR, and started to get cloudy, which is odd for Las Vegas desert. But it started to get cloudy and more cloudy. And finally the pilot says, we're IFR. Well, when you go out there, you have a minimum safe altitude where you would clear all of the mountaintops. I says, well then climb. Well, we might see some. I can see the ground. I says, can you see the hill at 12 miles ahead of us? The hill is now 11 miles ahead of us. Climb. Well, 10 miles. Climb. 9 miles. 100 feet above us. Climb. 8 miles. If you do not commence your climb, the navigator and the radar navigator are departing the aircraft. What do you mean? Trigger ring pull. That means I eject. Because he's going to run into a hill below the top of it. He started to climb. I says, climb faster. The book says I cannot climb any faster. I says, I'm gonna come up there and beat the crap out of you with that book. Fine. 4 miles. Still can't, and with a radar set, you knew it was above you when you couldn't see behind it. Okay, so it was all black. So this thing with all black behind it was getting closer and closer. So finally, I kept watching and I kept, okay, looking at one altimeter, radar altimeter, and this big black piece of crap out here. So finally, we crossed over that hill between 50 and 100 feet.
Ooh.
We got home. I didn't say another word for the rest of the flight. I got home.
Change your pants?
No, but I put that finger right between that boy's head. And he stood there and he never said a word. Because he knew if he did, I would have him on the ground. He was a higher ranking guy than I was. But when somebody tries to kill me, rank don't mean nothing. And I had a short one-way discussion. And then I went into the ops officer and I said, somebody needs to train this kid. He can't fly. So what's really amazing is after that, they put him in the safety department. So anyhow, that's a typical. Now today, a B-52H model, they do not fly low level anymore. They all fly high level, and it's all cruise missiles and precision guided weapons. So that's the way that is. Now, this one. Okay. Arthur,
Yes,
what is that?
looks like a, hound dog? No.
No, it's got the same warhead. This is a B-28 Joint Test Assembly. Okay, I can neither confirm or deny whether we have had, will have, or ever had nuclear weapons on Wurtsmith Air Force Base.
Really?
But an aircraft from Wurtsmith Air Force Base flew to Nevada with 4 things like this on board to test it. Like I say, this is a B-28, and the warhead in there, and it only takes up, about this much. You think that a nuke weapon is huge? It's not. And this warhead was also used in the Hound Dog, which were missiles put under the wings of B-52s. This was released at low level, and I'll just say it was released below 1,000 feet. Okay? And it had parachutes out the back. And I can't remember if this one had the 328 foot or the 160 foot. But anyhow, it had chutes out, so when you released it at 350 miles an hour, it slowed it down. And then when it hit the target area, the nose is kind of a honeycomb material, and that's where the fuse is. So when it hits the ground, like I say, this was a test assembly, so it had everything in it except the go-bang part. And that's what this test was for. And it also had, I think what he's doing now, it had about 6 antennas off the side, and they were getting data from that weapon as it was released and hit the ground. So this back part is all parachutes. I'll say right in here, there's a go-bang part, and then there's controls that you can select. Now this is, I will preface this by saying, I read this on Google.
So
This is a
Chinese
megaton range weapon, okay? What does that mean? That means it's 1,000,000 tons of TNT with one little weapon. The weapon released the little boy on Hiroshima, or Hiroshima, however somebody wants to pronounce it, was 20 kilotons. And we know what happened to Hiroshima. The bomb released on Nagasaki was 18 kilotons. Okay, kilotons, megatons. So, it's what we called a crowd pleaser. So, but anyhow, I kind of planned this thing for the crew. Then I came out here and got to watch what these guys do, and it's amazing. And I'm just saying, it's in northern Nevada, and I'm not going to say anything more than that. This is what's called a MITO. Minimum interval takeoff. These have been known to scare the crap out of navigators. Number one, okay. This was just a 3-ship bomber Mito. Usually we would combine it with a 3-ship tanker. The bombers had to keep within 15 seconds of each other. The first tanker had to be within 30 seconds of the last bomber. And then the tankers could be 15 seconds apart. So, when the first one takes off, if this is the runway, he will go off to the side. The second one will go basically 20, 10, and straight ahead. And the tankers are left on their own. Basically, they go left. So, and then they get together later. So, if the aircraft do not do this, and if they go do this, you get underneath the back end of an airplane, and you have what's called vortex turbulence. I saw a bomber take off at Castle. He was number 2, behind number 1. He was at least a 45-degree bank. And we were hoping we were going to get some good shoots. Finally, they recovered. But that was a mistake. Number 1, the student screwed up. Number 2, the instructor pilot screwed up by letting the student screw up, because that could have killed 9 people. You got a 6-person crew, an instructor pilot, instructor navigator, an IEW, and an instructor gunner. So, but anyhow, that's what we would use when we took off out of the alert facility. I have never done that. So let's see, what else we got there? Oh, I said 10 minutes, I'm a little over. This was about 1989, and obviously it was Special K. When this was first painted on that aircraft, and if you remember, in the B-17s, almost all of them had nose art, and there were no restrictions whatsoever. This lady was naked. Okay? The wing commander came out and said, that's really nice, that's good art. Now dress that damn lady. So, we dressed Kay. This was a bomb comp airplane going to England. Ralph Mollett, you might remember him. Gary Cruz. So, but anyhow, they went over. The Brits send airplanes here to our bomb comp, and we send over there. So, this is an aircraft. Now I'm going to advertise a little bit. This is an aircraft that Wurtsmith Air Museum people went to New Mexico to pick up back in 1994. It was in 3 pieces, 2 wings and a fuselage. It sat in our hangar until 2024.
Wow.
I talked to Coletta Apprentice Program, and I says, hey, why don't you let your boys work on this, and I won't charge you. What do you mean you won't? We're doing a lot of work, but I'm providing all the materials for you to work on. We came to a deal. They said, okay, we'll do it. So they put it back together, and this June, it came back out. It's an L-19. It's a 2-seat, 1-seat behind. We got it from the Atomic Energy Commission. They were using it out there to look over atomic tests. And when they landed, they ground looped it. So that's the reason that the wings and the fuselage was off. Okay, we really are getting close. This is an F-86D/L model. Right now it is down at Willow Run at the Yankee Air Force. This weekend, that stuff's going to come off, and we're going to put some cradles underneath it. The wings are going to come off, and it's going to come to Wurtsmith. So, This, the F-86D, not this aircraft. This aircraft was in fact stationed at Selfridge. I can only guess the way Selfridge used Wurtsmith as a satellite field, that this aircraft was at Wurtsmith at one time. But I can't guarantee that. But anyhow, we're gonna get it up here, and my apprentice people have said, we can do this. So they're gonna put it back together for us, because we're gonna have to take some parts apart. So, now this is just prior to closure. Here you can see the flag, circle flags, commissaries there. There's, looks like there's still airplanes out there. So, and the ops ramp. Here's the housing that they put in, so. And bayonet and Lincoln down here. Oh, went the wrong way. Where did I go? Here, this way.
Sweet.
Now I'm advertising.
Did you do that one?
That is my photo. Yes, sir. That is 6492, the last airplane to leave Wurtsmith on a final training service. He was doing hit and runs, I'm sorry, touch and go.
Touch and go.
And he happened to run down there, and he came down over there. This was done by film, this is not digital. This has not been redone. I had a camera, it was a twin lens reflex, if you're familiar. Crank, click, and I got one photo of the nose over this guy's head. I got this one, and I got a picture of his tail right up here. Anyhow, that is available at Wurtsmith Air Museum, and you can buy it online. So, that's my story. I'm sticking to it. But yes, I did take that photo. And then this is the 1958 photo again. And like I say, you can see there's no houses, and this is the beginning. So, ma'am, light please. That's all I know, folks.
There it is.
How many of the little P-52s ever got shot down?
Oh,
Yeah, now?
How many?
how many, what?
P-52s ever got shot down?
17 in 1972. I don't know the other one. I can't answer that.
Okay.
Do you know that number?
Just curious.
Oh, I don't.